In fact, Northeastern's example should speak to every one of us about the massive transformation that is taking place around the world. Northeastern's gone global. Our leading corporations are going global. Health and medicine and film are going global. And I think that everyone here, especially the class of 2016, understands that viscerally, internally, intellectually. You're about to graduate into a complex and borderless world. Today, we face a world that is much more complicated, less hierarchical, where non-state actors play a central role, where disturbing images and outright lies can circle the globe in an instant, where dangers like climate change, terrorism, and disease do not respect borders.
First of all, the integration of national economies into a global economy, that's here. That's done. And so the question is not whether or not there's going to be an international global economy. There is one.
How much does America want to invest around the world? We're seeing a new world order now being built, a post-World War II world order. And I don't think America can retreat from that. I think we have to balance and adapt and adjust to the realities and the currents of this new world order.
And we're building an inclusive society in which everybody's got a fair shot. That's how we're going to solve these problems. So we're going to keep on pushing hard to shape an international order that works for our people. We're going to keep on pushing hard to shape an international order that works for our people.
Multiple passwords and security questions will soon be a thing of the past. Australian banks and the tax office are pioneering new technology, which means all you'll need is your voice.
It's also worthy for us to recognize that our nations have worked together for security and peace and human dignity around the world. In Paris, the most ambitious agreement in history to fight climate change, a new sustainable development set of goals to end extreme poverty and promote health and education and equality for all people.
Of 25 local authorities from around the world have and will continue to shape the Strong Cities Network.
But today, we have a different approach. Through the Strong Cities Network being unveiled today, we're making the first systematic effort in history to bring together cities around the world to share experiences, to pool all of our resources, and to forge partnerships in order to build local cohesion and resilience on a global scale.
The Strong Cities Network is a network focused on supporting cities to prevent all forms of violent extremism. It is important to remember that while attention is currently focused on ISIS and the challenge of foreign fighters, the threat of other forms of violent extremism, not least extreme right-wing groups, remain critical and of critical concern to local authorities around the world and the communities that they represent.
This is, I think, therefore a fitting place to talk about the launch of the Strong Cities Network and what it can mean and what it can achieve. This network is different. It is unlike any other effort that we've seen before.
I have for a long time believed that international institutions should be doing far more to integrate cities into global governance.
We will send a message from all of our voices about who we are and about what we aspire to be as an alliance of nations and a global community.
It underlined a message he's had all week: find that which unites.
They're faced with a very real prospect of Donald Trump becoming the leader of the party, and it absolutely drives them crazy. They just cannot imagine sharing. Well, because he's an outsider. He's not them. He's not part of the club. He's uncontrollable. He hasn't been through the initiation rites. He didn't belong to the secret society. He hasn't been through the initiation rites. He didn't belong to the secret society. And I think that they don't see him, they have no idea how to relate to him.
Political correctness is a weapon to silence debate and make people submit to the agenda of the establishment. I'm going to play a clip here in a moment of Donald Trump saying 200,000 migrants from Syria would be the biggest Trojan horse ever. It already is in Europe. 6 months ago, ISIS said they would use a migrant wave to do this. And now, of course, they're talking about millions and millions in Europe. Well, we've got the head of the UN board openly saying it's about ending the European culture. That doesn't mean white people. It means getting rid of the idea, I guess, just a free market renaissance and just getting rid of any culture. It's political correctness. And why would the left want to bring in radical Islam? Let's play a clip here from Donald Trump.
I was always a big fan of Merkel from Germany. I'm not a fan anymore. What she's doing is insane. And we want to take in 200,000, and we don't know where they come from. They have no papers. All we know is they're young and they're strong and they're mostly men. And this could be the greatest Trojan horse ever. This could be bigger than the original Trojan horse. We shouldn't be taking anybody. We have enough problems. We have to rebuild our country, our infrastructure. We owe $19 trillion. And by the way, taking in 200,000 is going to cost us, over a period of 10 years, going to cost us billions of dollars. What are we doing? Merkel made a tremendous mistake. They're going to end up having a revolution in Germany. You see what's happening with the German
100%.
people. What we should do, at the same time, from a humane standpoint, take a big chunk of Syria and let's all put some money into it if we have to, because on a humane basis, and build a safe zone, what's called a safe zone. But to allow them into Germany and to allow them into these other countries where there's nothing but a horror show, you see what's happening, and now we're going to take in 200,000 people in this country,
insane. It's
and we
insane.
can't breathe.
It is insane.
Overseas in Poland, what's known as the Catholic Woodstock ended with a tremendous Sunday Mass and parting words of wisdom from Pope Francis.
At one point during the celebrations, the Pope asked the masses gathered from so many different countries to hold hands and to find common humanity. It underlined a message he's had all week: find that which unites, not divides.
Is it necessary for the coming together of religions. I see why it's necessary for coming together on money, on politics, but why religion?
Well, if there is going to be a one world political and economic system, somehow the world's religions have to be brought together to make that possible. If they are in major disagreement with each other and don't see eye to eye, it would be very difficult to bring this one world system together and have it work. And so that's why globalists have been pushing this agenda for a long time.
Was saying in 73 this deal was struck with Saudi Arabia, that Saudi Arabia all was going to purchase oil using U.S. dollars. In exchange for them doing that, the United States were going to give weapons and protection of their oil fields from neighboring nations, including Israel, and the 75 all OPEC nations agreed to exchange in U.S. dollars for weapons and military protection. That blew me away.
It's a very, very nasty deal, and we have the documents on our website. The evidence is there.
And what does that mean?
Well, in essence, as you said, in 1973, the dollars for gold standard was obviously gone, and it was very unsustainable. Now, the reason why they brokered this deal, and I don't think that Kissinger and Nixon knew how good of a deal this was going to be. I think this was kind of a last-ditch effort. And it turned out to be unbelievable. It could have been mastermind, and maybe it was. But the main thing is that it worked. And so what happened, starting in 1973, is that every barrel of oil that came out of the ground of Saudi Arabia, no matter who wanted to buy it, whether it was Japan, who was extremely resource poor, or Brazil, or Canada, or anybody on the planet, if they wanted to do business with Saudi Arabia, now watch this, if they wanted to do business with Saudi Arabia and buy oil from them, they had to take their Japanese yen or their Brazilian real, and they had to convert it to U.S. dollars. Now think about that for a minute. What happens when you convert one currency to another? You're creating an artificial demand for that currency that did not exist prior to that. And so what they did was they created an artificial demand. This is what, and this boils down to where it meets the road. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is what the average person doesn't understand, is that whenever the Fed prints money, like QE1, QE2, QE3, the reason that they can get away with that is because we have a permission slip to print money, because there is a artificial demand that exists globally for the dollar. How come? Because of the petrodollar system. So if Saudi Arabia becomes upset with us, right, or if these other oil-producing nations in OPEC become upset with us, what they can do is say, we're going to accept dollars and yuan, or dollars and euros, dollars and gold. And what that does is it puts the Federal Reserve in a panic, because suddenly now there is choice. Suddenly now the Fed does not have this unbelievable, never-ending permission slip to print money. So the more they print, the more asset prices can rise.
It's all about oil.
And
to keep this artificial market, to make sure that everybody trades in oil in dollars. Now, why did they attack Saddam? And that's what Jerry said.
September 24th, 2000, Saddam emerges from a meeting with his advisors, and they decide to move from selling dollars in oil to selling oil in euros. And just a few years later, he's hanging from a noose. Yep. North Korea doesn't take dollars. Venezuela does dollars, but they've been off and on. Iran is now accepting dollars, and now suddenly they're our buddies. People don't understand that America is an empire. It doesn't have friends, it has subjects. America is an empire. It doesn't have friends, it has subjects.
And another thing to know is that was a guy named Gaddafi. Remember him? He was trying to set up an exchange in dinar. And he got taken out.
He got taken out, too. So this is why the other day, whenever the king of Saudi Arabia conveyed through one of his foreign ministers to the Congress, that if the Congress passes a bill that provides any kind of transparency on Saudi Arabia's role in 9/11, that they will dump $750 billion of U.S. debt securities. Translate that to say they are going to dump the dollar. The next thing you see is Obama hopping on a plane, going over and kissing the king's ring. So something's going on right now. This is about the This is about the most concerned I've been about the economy since 2003.
You know, most politicians have a price, which is the problem. But as we know, politicians cannot run without money. And the bigger your war chest, you know, that's why Biden had to drop out, because Hillary's war chest is so big, Biden could never catch up to it. So the presidency and our senators and our congressmen can be bought. That's our problem today.
They knocked Trump 2 months ago saying bomb the hell out of ISIS, take over their oil fields, blow them up, that'll cut their money off. We can fix them in just a couple of weeks, which is totally true. That's a no-brainer, and I'm not even a military tactician. That's what you would do. That's what the generals were saying. They went, oh, you're an idiot. Then we wait. Putin comes in and makes Obama look like a complete moron, and now they're saying Russia's the new moral center of the world. I mean, wow, you talk about a disaster.
And when you look at the world economy, you look at the war in the Middle East, you look at China and all that, which person of all the candidates, including Bernie Sanders, Hillary, and the rest of the Republicans, which one has the experience, but more important, you know, my Jewish friends say the chutzpah, the horsepower to take them on? And right now, you know, I'm from Hawaii, Obama's from Hawaii, very smart guy, nice leader, but he's not a powerful leader. So we're getting walked on all over the world. And when you have a weak leader, you know, there's two types of leadership. One is tyranny. Now, if you have a weak leader, you have anarchy. Today, we have anarchy all over the Middle East. That's more dangerous than a tyrant. And a lot of it, when I look at our leadership, and I do include Bush, George Bush in this whole thing, we've had weak leaders, and we're now in anarchy all over the world. And I think right now we need a tyrant. And Donald Trump, not that Donald is a tyrant, but he's closer to a tyrant than, let's say, Carson. You know, we don't need brain surgeons right now. We need somebody who's a strong leader. Otherwise, this anarchy will spread.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to inform you that the world now is a global village.
And this is hugely significant and a welcome step forward. It enables all sectors of society to come together behind a shared vision of a more peaceful, sustainable and prosperous world where everyone has a role to play in making this a reality. I think that it is very clear that the time is now for us to all get involved. It is not everybody that is aware, and continuous engagement, conversation, publicizing this and conscientizing everybody to realize that the SDGs are real and this is what is going to change our world, this is what is going to change our localities, is more apparent today than ever before.
If we were weathermen, we'd say there's a dangerous storm ahead. All the factors are together. I believe the time is late. I believe even if you didn't know about any of this, even if you just watched the signs of the time, watch what's happening in America, I believe that the time is late and we need to be ready. We need to be ready for shaking. We need also, you know, there's persecution coming. If you watch the way the culture is going, we need to be ready for that as well. I believe God is separating the wheat from the chaff. And it's a time of polarization where the grays become disappearing and you are ending up with blacks and whites. You're ending up with light and darkness. And it is time to be not intimidated. It's time to be stronger for God right now. I do believe that God has grace. I believe that also that through shaking, God's purpose is revival. I believe as a nation, we've come to a point so hard and deafened to God that it's going to take him shouting for there to be revival. Remember, after 9/11, everybody was flocking to churches, but there was no revival because there was no repentance. You can have no revival without repentance. And so I believe that's the dynamic, that the point is that God is in fact, if we didn't have a shaking, then I'd say there's almost no hope. But the fact is, I believe through shaking, God is calling for revival, and this could be the greatest revival in the midst of judgment that has ever been.